friends, Elizabeth here from Plant-Based Bride, back again with another video. And today I'm really excited to be sharing with you my November bullet journal plan with me. This setup has a vintage books theme, which was the theme voted for by my awesome patrons, and I'm really excited to share it with you. But before we can jump into the planning, I have to take a moment to thank this video's sponsor, Harry's. I have found shopping for razors to be one of the most frustrating experiences of my adult life. Trying to find razors that are both affordable and high quality had felt completely impossible up until about 2 years ago when I first found Harry's. I was actually so excited when Harry's reached out to me about sponsoring a video because my husband and I have been exclusively using Harry's for all of our razor needs for the past 2 years and have never looked back. Harry's founders, Jeff and Andy, were tired of overpaying for over-designed razors. So they decided to start Harry's. They raised a bunch of money and bought a razor blade factory in Germany. Nowadays, they help millions of people to shave each and every day in a premium and hassle-free way. Harry sent me their starter set, which includes a weighted handle with textured rubber grip, a 5-blade razor cartridge, foaming shave gel, and a travel cover to protect your blades when you're on the move. Harry's really is that perfect combination of affordability and quality. These razors are such high quality, and they actually just redesigned their blades to make them their sharpest yet, without raising the price, because their refills still start at just $2. Harry's guarantees a close and comfortable shave. And this has been my experience as well. This is why we've stuck with Harry's for so long. I find that their razors stay nice and sharp and give me a close, comfortable shave for way longer than I've ever experienced with razors from other brands. They also support great causes. They give 1% of their sales to organizations that promote better mental health care, which is something that I can 100% get behind. The deal Harry's currently have on their trial set is amazing, and you'll get everything you need for a close, comfortable shave. Plus, you'll be supporting my channel. You can redeem your set for just $3. Go to harrys.com/plantbasedbride. Again, make sure you go to harrys.com/plantbasedbride to redeem your offer and join 10 million people getting a close and comfortable shave with Harry's. Thank you again to Harry's for sponsoring this video, and now, without further ado, let's jump into the planning. Okay, so here we go, jumping in. I wanted to start with the cover page, and I had this concept for a cover page that I wanted to paint, and I was really going back and forth about whether I wanted to paint it directly into my bullet journal or not. I think I pretty easily could have painted directly in, but the main issue was my lack of confidence in my own ability to make what was in my brain on paper. So I thought it would be safer to paint it on a piece of watercolor paper, and then if it didn't work out, I could just grab a new sheet and start again instead of worrying about doing it directly in my bullet journal. So that's what we did. As always, all of the supplies I'm using will be linked down below in the description box, so check that out if you're looking for the particular type of watercolor paper, the specific paints I'm using, all of that good stuff. So here for the painting, I am trying to create a really cozy nighttime scene, as if I'm sitting at my wooden table. I have my giant candle burning and a couple stacks of vintage books that I'm poring over, and a tiny, tiny little mug of espresso to keep me up all night. For the painting, I am predominantly using gouache paints, but because I have so few shades of gouache paint, I also used a few of my Archer & Olive acrylograph paint pens for the base colors of both the teal book and the red book. This painting took me the better part of a day to do. I find this comes up a lot with me with my themes because I always pick things that I have never tried to draw or paint before, and then I just jump in headfirst and see what I can do. So I feel like there's always a lot of trial and error, and me, doing something and not liking it and trying to fix it and trying something else. So it's always a longer process, but I feel like this week especially, I had a lot on my mind. If you follow me on Instagram, you will know that I made a post in honor of Mental Health Awareness Month, and the content of that post has been on my mind a lot this week. And, you know, having heavy things on my mind and kind of working through things, it was the perfect time for a long painting process like this one, because I really just allowed my mind to meander while I was painting and kind of zoned out or zoned in to the painting process. And as I've mentioned before on my channel, for me, the artistic side of bullet journaling really is incredibly therapeutic. And I felt that so keenly while painting this particular painting. The combination of the cozy vibes of the painting itself and the time of year, looking out my window at the trees that are changing colors and, you know, the gentle wind and the rain, and just considering how far I've come over the years and doing some pretty deep self-reflection while keeping my hands busy creating this painting. So while it was a long process, it was definitely worthwhile in my opinion. And I'm really happy with how the painting itself turned out, which is great because I was a bit concerned for a bit there that it wasn't going to work out. If you're interested, I could put up a video where I slow down this footage a bit closer to real time and I talk you through sort of the techniques or the process in more detail. I didn't want this video to be hours long, so I decided to skip that in this video. But you can use the time adjustments on YouTube to watch this video slower if you like to be able to see a little more what I'm doing. Once I had the base painting finished, I wanted to add my gold accents, of course. I'm not going to leave you hanging. So I added some gold to the interior of the flame, and I also added gold details to all of the vintage books, which I feel is a really common feature of vintage books, at least some of them in my collection, that they have gold accents on the spines especially. Once the painting was finished, I scanned it into my computer, adjusted it slightly in Photoshop so that the colors would match up as close as possible, and I also sized it up a little bit in the hopes that it would fit my B5 sized journal. I printed it on 2 sheets of paper and used my paper cutter to get a nice clean line down the center so that they would hopefully perfectly line up, and then I glued those sheets into my bullet journal. Then I used my tiny little vintage looking scissors to trim the excess. Once those were glued in, I went in with my gold watercolor again to go over the gold to add that really reflective quality back in. I was actually really impressed by how well the gold scanned and printed. I almost left it as is, but there is just something incomparable about the metallic gold when you change your perspective and see the way it shines in different light. And the scanned version did not have that same quality in the light, and I missed it. So I decided to go over it again. No one is surprised. Moving on to my next spread, which is going to be my calendar on the left side, and on the right side, a quote page. I thought it would be cool to have the background of these pages be actual scanned pages from a vintage book. So these pages I scanned from the book you can see in the lower left-hand corner, which is the first volume of an encyclopedia set that I have, which is over 100 years old. So I scanned 2 of the pages and sized them up just a little bit, printed them out, and glued them in just the same way and trimmed the excess. I also used some craft paper from a new product coming from Archer and Olive very soon. This is your sneak peek. I will update the link in the description as soon as it's released. I wanted a piece for the header and for the calendar itself, and I also wanted a piece that had a little bit of a rougher, ripped quality for the quote page. I glued those in, and I used my stamp set along with my gold stamp pad to add November as the header and the days of the week in the space between the header and the calendar. I went over the gold stamps with my gold watercolor again for that reflective quality that y'all know I am obsessed with. And then I used a Sakura Micron fine liner in 01 to create the calendar itself, and a Superfine 003 Sakura Micron to add the days of the month. Moving on to the quote page, I decided to use my stamp set in the black ink pad to add our quote this month, which I thought was so perfect, not only for this theme, but also for this time in our lives, 2020. So my quote this month is, "Reading gives us someplace to go when we have to stay where we are," by Mason Cooley. Flipping over to the final spread of this video, which is my series of weekly spreads, and this was the portion that took the longest of this entire video and probably the most ambitious spread I've ever tried to make in a bullet journal. I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure. And you might notice that I gave in and I'm cutting my pages, y'all. This is something that I'm pretty sure I said I would never do. And I went back and forth on this because I loved this idea. I thought it would be so cool, so perfect for this theme. But I have this weird aversion to cutting pages in my bullet journal. And I just decided to go for it because you only live once, you know? And I thought this was too cool of an idea to pass up. So here we go. My concept for the weeklies was to make it look like I had a small book sitting on a table and the pages of the book are my weeklies. So you'll see what I mean as I go along. I started by counting out how many pages I would need. So I personally needed 9 pages to be the actual pages of the book, 2 pages to be the front and back cover, and then 2 pages to be the table. So I counted those out and double checked to make sure I had it right. And then I started by painting the table. And initially I was going to paint in some letters and pieces of paper kind of sitting on the table before I had the brilliant idea that I could literally just glue in random pieces of paper and write my own letters, which would make it look more realistic and also probably be easier for everyone involved. And by everyone involved, I mean me. So I ended up using some scrap pieces of paper. These are predominantly pieces of paper that I tea stained back over a year ago, actually, for my October 2019 theme. I tea stained a bunch of pieces of paper. So I used those to scrawl little messages and add some washi tape and just glue in those random pieces of paper so that it would look like a random assortment of things that are just lying around on my desk. And it's probably a pretty accurate representation to what my desk looks like on a day-to-day basis. My bullet journal sitting on top of a random array of letters and scraps of paper and post-its. I thought it would be nice if the book cover was a dark green with gold accents, so I used this dark green gouache. Once I'd created all of my random things to sit on the table in the background, it was time to start cutting. So I decided to cut the cover just slightly smaller than the table so I could have as much space as possible in my eventual weeklies, since the pages of the week are going to have to be even smaller than the book cover. I decided to do slightly rounded edges, but obviously that's up to you. And then I thought it would be really cool if I used some patterned paper to create end papers, because so many vintage books have really pretty, slightly patterned end papers on the inside of the cover. So I decided to use this one, which I felt had a very almost Victorian vibe to it. So I just glued it in and then cut away the excess. Once that was done, I wanted to cut all of the interior pages to size. So I'm cutting them, again, just slightly smaller than the cover. I think this was made way easier by the fact that I have a B5 size notebook, so the notebook itself is much larger, which means even cutting a pretty significant amount from the top, bottom, and side, the pages are still large enough to be usable in a weekly spread. This may be more difficult to do if you have an A5 size notebook. You may find that the interior pages end up being too small to be usable, but of course that depends on how you use your weeklies, how much space you need, the kinds of layouts you do, all kinds of things. So just keep that in mind. I am in a B5 size notebook, which does make it easier to do this kind of a thing. For the gold accent on the front and back cover, I decided to do 2 gold bands and then to add the title on the front. And the first thing that popped into my head for a title was Week by Week, so that's what I went with. Once I finished the cover, I wanted to create the front page of the book and wanted to recreate the feel of a vintage cover page while keeping it very simple. So I just did a black border and then stamped the title again in the center of the page using my black ink this time, Week by Week. Then I set up the weeklies themselves. I'm using my 3-page faux Dutch door rolling weekly for this. I'll link the video where I explain how the rolling weekly works and the faux Dutch door in the cards and in the description box down below. If you're unfamiliar, this is my go-to weekly spread. And I kept them very simple, again, just using my Sakura Micron fine liners to create simple black borders, and then using my black ink pad with my stamps for all of the headers. And with that, we are done. As I said, I think this may be the most ambitious spread I've ever done in my bullet journal. When this idea occurred to me, I was super excited, but also mildly terrified that it would be a complete disaster and I would have cut up my bullet journal for nothing. But I'm honestly so happy with how it turned out. I think it's so cute. I'm really excited to use these spreads throughout November. So let's jump back and do a little flip through so you can see all of the spreads in their final form. I definitely feel like these spreads have a vintage vibe to them. They feel very warm and cozy, very fall-like, which I feel is pretty much anything I could have wanted from a vintage books theme. Let me know in the comments down below if you liked this one. Would you ever try doing weeklies like this? Would you ever cut the pages in your bullet journal? Let me know. I never thought that I would do it until this idea popped into my head, and I just thought it was too cool to not try it out. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you again to Harry's for sponsoring. Don't forget you can go to harrys.com/plantbasedbride to get your starter set for just $3. And with that, we've come to the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for 80,000 subscribers. This is like a dream come true. If you're watching this video and you're not subscribed, consider joining the fam. We would love to have you. And before I go, I want to take a moment to thank my patrons for their support. Extra special thanks to our newest patrons, Tegan, Ashley, Miranda, Rosie, Genevieve, McKenna, Bianca Caras, Ava, Valerie, Gemma, and Jessica. Welcome all of you to the squad. We are so excited to have you. If you at home want to join the squad, feel free. There's a link in the card and in the description box down below. And with that, I'm going to get going. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you really soon in my next one. Bye, friends. If you're looking for something else to watch, I recommend you check out this video or this video.